Good evening, everyone. Let me begin with a simple truth. You are not here to be controlled. You are here to remember who you are. We often talk about toxic people, emotional vampires, and those who manipulate for their own gain. But tonight, we're going deeper than surface psychology. We're going into energy, frequency, and the consciousness that creates reality. You see, narcissists don't just manipulate your mind, they manipulate your biology. They want your attention, your emotion, your reaction, because that's how they feed. That's how they anchor themselves into your nervous system like a program running in the background. But what happens when the program no longer runs? What happens when you take your power back? Not through fighting, not through arguing, but through pure self-realization. Let me tell you what happens. Self-awareness is not just a concept. It's not just some abstract idea you read in a book or hear in a motivational talk. It is the threshold, an energetic gateway between living life in reaction and creating life by intention. Most people walk through the world asleep, not because they're lazy or broken, but because their mind has been hijacked by patterns they didn't choose. Emotional programs installed by childhood, culture, trauma, and repeated environments. These programs run automatically. They fire the same neural networks. They release the same chemicals. They reinforce the same identity. And the more you repeat them, the more they feel like you. This is precisely where the narcissist doesn't just manipulate with words. They manipulate with words. They manipulate with timing, with tone. With micro rewards and punishments, they map your emotional terrain and learn exactly how to push you back into those predictable patterns. They count on your lack of awareness because the more reactive you are, the more control they have. But the moment you become aware, truly aware, something ancient wakes up inside of you. You no longer just feel the emotion. You observe it. You no longer just play the role. You witness the role being played. You watch your body react, your mind race, your breath change, and instead of drowning in it, you notice it. That's the beginning of liberation. From the lens of neuroscience, this is more than symbolic. Awareness actually changes. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive function, focus, and conscious choice, begins to activate. The limbic brain, the emotional center that's constantly in survival mode, begins to quiet. Cortisol levels lower. You move out of fight or flight and into what science calls a state of homeostasis, inner balance. In that state, you're no longer pulled by emotional hooks. You're no longer unconsciously reacting to every passive-aggressive comment, every silent treatment. Instead, you recognize, oh, this is a pattern. This isn't me. This is a script I've been acting out. And with that realization, you interrupt the cycle. You break the loop. The narcissist wants you unconscious. That's where their power lies. Because if you're not aware of your own triggers, you're easy to provoke. If you don't understand your own needs, you're easy to manipulate. If you don't know who you are, you're vulnerable to anyone who claims they can define you. But awareness dismantles all of that. And it's not about thinking harder. It's about becoming still enough to witness your inner landscape without judgment, to track the sensations in your body, to watch the thoughts as they rise, to catch the stories you've been telling yourself, some of them for years. The ones that say, I'm not good enough, I need them to love me. If they're upset, I must have done something wrong. Those are not truths. Those are echoes, and echoes only survive in unconscious spaces. As you become more aware, the nervous system begins to regulate. You stop outsourcing your emotional safety to volatile people. You stop seeking clarity from those who benefit from your confusion. You stop negotiating your worth through someone else's approval. And here's what's fascinating. Your brain notices this shift. Your energy field responds. Coherence begins to build between your heart and your brain. You literally become less available for manipulation. Not because you're armored, but because you are rooted. The narcissist may still try the same tactics. They might escalate. They might rage, retreat, or guilt trip, but something is different now. You're watching? Because when your frequency rises into coherence, when your energy stabilizes in peace, neutrality, and self-trust, their games no longer land. Their tactics lose traction. They can feel it. Even if you say nothing, they feel the withdrawal of emotional supply. They feel your nervous system disengaging. They feel your presence shift from seeking to observing. They don't understand it logically, but energetically they panic because the performance only works when the audience believes it. The manipulation only sticks when your field is open to being distorted. Once you become a closed circuit of truth, the narcissist's access is revoked, not through defense, but through energetic discernment. And this doesn't come from hatred or revenge. It comes from stillness, from attunement. From the knowing that your energy is sacred, and what you allow into your field is a direct act of creation. It is your vibration that builds your future. It is your frequency that shapes your timeline. It is your alignment that determines what and who you attract or repel. So you begin to listen more deeply, not just to what people say, but to how your body reacts in their presence. You begin to feel the subtle differences between manipulation and magnetism, between attention and intention, between performance and presence. Because energy doesn't lie. Ready for the next one? The brain is not static. It's not a fixed machine with permanent settings. It is adaptive, electric, and astonishingly plastic. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change itself, is one of the most profound truths of modern neuroscience. It means you are not doomed to repeat the past. It means you are not sentenced to live in the identity you inherited, absorbed, or programmed into. But that transformation doesn't happen by chance. It happens through repetition. Whatever you repeat, you hardwire. Whatever you rehearse mentally and emotionally, you strengthen. It becomes not just a thought, it becomes a neural circuit, a default mode, a chemical signature, a reality your body begins to live out on autopilot. The narcissist understands this. Not necessarily in scientific terms, but instinctively. They know that the more they repeat their message, directly or subtly, the more your brain absorbs it. Every insult masked as a joke, every withdrawal followed by intermittent affection. Every moment where love was made conditional begins to carve grooves in your psyche. And the more you're exposed to it, the more it feels familiar. And the brain doesn't crave what's healthy, it craves what's familiar. Through repetition, you begin to doubt yourself without them even needing to say a word. You begin to walk on eggshells before they even speak. You anticipate punishment. You rehearse their anger in your mind. You edit your truth to avoid their disapproval. These are not conscious choices, these are learned reactions. The brain, always seeking efficiency, builds pathways to keep you in a survival mode, where hypervigilance, guilt, and self-abandonment become habits encoded into your nervous system. But here's the deeper truth. If repetition can hardwire dysfunction, repetition can also rewire you into freedom. Every time you interrupt the pattern, even just mentally, you're introducing a new possibility. When you start thinking different thoughts, even if they feel awkward or fake at first, you're beginning the process of change. When you stop feeding the narrative that says, I need their love to be enough, or I'm the problem, and you replace it with truth, your truth, your neurons begin to fire in new configurations, and neurons that fire together wire together. But it's not just the thought, it's the emotion. Thought without emotion doesn't change the brain. It's the elevated feeling attached to the new thought that opens the doorway to transformation. So it's not just saying I am worthy. It's feeling what worthiness feels like. It's not just saying I'm safe without them. It's breathing into your body, slowing down your heart rate, and showing your nervous system what safety actually feels like. That is repetition. Not just cognitive, somatic, energetic, experiential. The brain learns through experience. That's how the narcissist created trauma in the first place. Not by simply saying words, but by creating emotional experiences you had no control over. Now you reverse engineer healing by creating new emotional experiences you do control. It may feel unnatural at first, even painful. Because the old patterns have momentum, they're wired deeply, they feel like home even if they hurt. But the brain is listening. Every time you choose presence over reaction, you weaken the old network. Every time you visualize yourself free, confident, unshaken, your neurons stretch toward that image like roots searching for water. Every time you feel compassion for yourself instead of shame, the chemistry changes. Neurotransmitters shift, hormones balance. The body begins to believe a new story. And this doesn't require perfection. It requires consistency, deliberate, repeated emotionally charged experiences. You repeat truth until it feels truer than the lie. You repeat boundaries until they become second nature. You repeat presence until your body trusts stillness again. You repeat self-respect until it becomes your new baseline. The narcissist may have planted the seed of self-doubt, but you decide what grows, and your brain, as complex and miraculous as it is, will follow your lead. Not immediately, not easily, but inevitably if you repeat. Let me know when you're ready for the next keynote. There is a state the body enters when all systems are aligned, when the mind, the heart, and the nervous system move together like instruments tuned to the same key. That state is coherence. It is not about perfection. It's not about eliminating emotion. It's about harmony. It's about internal order where the noise quiets and the signal becomes clear. In a coherent state, your heart rhythm becomes smooth and synchronized. Your breathing deepens. Your thoughts slow down. You gain access to higher perception, increased resilience, and a deep, steady sense of self. It's not a mood. It's a physiological frequency. A measurable electromagnetic harmony between your brain and your heart. And when you're in it, you become energetically sovereign, emotionally intelligent, unshakably anchored. This is the exact opposite of what a narcissist creates. A narcissist thrives in chaos, not because they enjoy disorder itself, but because it makes you easier to control. Chaos is the playground of manipulation. It's where your nervous system is overstimulated, where your thoughts become foggy, and where your inner compass gets scrambled. When you're in chaos, you're reactive, you're triggered. You're doubting yourself, second-guessing your reality, looking outward for stability because your inner world has been thrown into a storm. This is not accidental, it's engineered. They interrupt your coherence with contradiction. One moment, validation. The next, contempt. One moment, connection. The next, withdrawal. You never know where you stand, and that uncertainty creates a neurochemical loop in your body. Spikes of cortisol, crashes of dopamine, frantic surges of adrenaline. Your body becomes addicted to the instability. Your mind becomes obsessed with resolution. Your spirit becomes tangled in survival. And the more you try to regulate them, the more dysregulated you become. You start living in their emotional weather system. You scan their tone, their silence, their size. You become attuned to their storm. You adapt your own state to accommodate theirs, hoping that if you just show up perfectly, if you anticipate their needs, silence your truth, shrink your discomfort, they'll finally stabilize. But that moment never comes because their power depends on your disorientation. Chaos is their domain. And the longer you stay in it, the more you forget that peace is even possible. But coherence is always available. It begins in the body. You return to the breath, not the shallow, rapid breath of anxiety, but the slow, conscious breath that signals safety to the nervous system. You bring awareness to the heart, not to bypass the mind, but to include the wisdom of emotion. You begin to regulate from the inside out, not waiting for the narcissist to be calm so you can relax, but generating calm internally as a sovereign act of self-respect. The science is as profound as the metaphor. When the heart enters a coherent state, it sends more stable, organized signals to the brain. Decision-making improves. Emotional resilience strengthens. You gain clarity. Your electromagnetic field. Your electromagnetic field becomes more structured. You literally radiate order. And in the presence of that order, chaos starts to lose its grip. It's not that the narcissist becomes less chaotic. It's that you no longer resonate with it. You stop harmonizing with their dysfunction. You stop absorbing their projections. You stop feeling responsible for their storms. Your coherence becomes a boundary, one they cannot cross unless you collapse into their field. This is not just spiritual theory, it's neurophysiological truth. When you train your body to stay coherent in the presence of chaos, you're not just practicing peace, you're building neurological immunity. You're creating an internal environment that resists emotional contagion. You're refusing to participate in their dissonance, not by fighting it, but by vibrating above it. Coherence becomes your compass, your sanctuary, your signal to yourself that no matter what happens outside you, you will not betray what's true within you. Let me know when you're ready for the next one. There are two versions of you living in the same body. One is the actor, the one who reacts, performs, defends, pleases, and survives. The one who's been shaped by expectations, trauma, approval, rejection, reward, punishment. This self is a composite of memories, a product of emotional repetition, a neural bundle of familiar roles and conditioned scripts. It's the part of you that says, "This is just how I am," when really It's just how you've been. But there is another you, the one who watches, the one who notices the reaction without becoming it, the one who can pause between trigger and response, the one who witnesses the thought, the emotion, the contraction in the body, and does not identify with it. That is the observer. And while the actor may move through the world with noise and drama, it is the quiet power of the observer that initiates true change. The observer is not passive. It is not indifferent. It is awake. It is the space in which all experience arises, and yet it is untouched by experience itself. The observer does not ask for attention, but it holds the deepest intelligence of all, presence. And in the realm of narcissistic dynamics, this is your greatest asset. Because narcissists are masters of performance. They live and breathe in the realm of roles. Victim, hero, martyr, superior, wounded child, seductive savior. They know how to perform vulnerability without feeling it. They know how to act loving without being loving. They don't connect to truth. They connect to optics, impressions, control. If you were only operating as the actor, if you were only reactive, emotionally fused, caught up in your role, you are easily manipulated. The narcissist doesn't need to overpower you. They just need to activate the part of you that's unconscious. The part of you that gets pulled into defense, justification, over-explaining, guilt, and fear. But the moment you shift into the observer, the entire game begins to dissolve. Because the observer sees the game. It doesn't get pulled into the content. It sees the pattern. It recognizes the bait. It hears the manipulation and does not take it personally. It senses the energetic hook and declines the invitation to respond. The observer is your access to neutrality. Not apathy, but neutrality, the space where clarity becomes possible. From a neuroscientific perspective, this is the shift from the limbic brain, where emotion overrides reason, to the prefrontal cortex, the seat of conscious awareness. When you engage the observer, your brain changes. You rewire out of reactivity and into regulation. Your body exits the survival loop. You gain access to choice. And this is where freedom begins, not by changing the narcissist, but by changing your relationship to the narrative. You stop playing your part in their drama. You stop being the mirror they use to see themselves. You become the witness who holds presence without performance. The more you stay in that awareness, the less enmeshed you become. You stop answering every accusation. You stop trying to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you. You stop trying to prove your goodness inside a system built on distortion. The observer knows that your worth was never on trial. It sees the insecurity behind their arrogance, the fear behind their rage, the emptiness behind their control. And because the observer sees everything, it can choose to do nothing. It can choose stillness, detachment, or aligned action not from reaction, but from grounded knowing. This power is subtle, but it is unshakable. The actor is loud and frantic. The observer is calm and precise. The actor is emotionally entangled. The observer is clear-eyed and still. The actor seeks control. The observer simply sees. And it's the act of seeing, pure, unfiltered, non-reactive awareness that breaks the spell. Let me know when you're ready for the next keynote, and I'll expand it with the same depth. There comes a point on the healing journey where you begin to understand that effort by itself is not evolution. That pushing, proving, and performing are not the metrics of transformation. That trying harder doesn't necessarily take you deeper, because the real architecture of change, the invisible scaffolding behind true shift, is not built through force. It's built through frequency. Everything in this universe vibrates. Your body, your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions, all of them emit a measurable frequency. This isn't metaphor. It's quantum physics. It's bioenergetics. It's the truth that every moment you are broadcasting a signal, and that signal is magnetic. It draws in experiences, people, patterns not based on what you want, but based on who you're being. And this is where most people miss the mark. They think if they just try hard enough, if they explain themselves clearly, if they argue better, if they hold tighter, if they keep loving with more intensity, they'll finally break through the wall. They'll finally get the narcissist to understand, to change, to reciprocate. But force only begets more force. When you meet dysfunction with desperation, you amplify chaos. When you meet control with more control, you create war. When you meet manipulation with emotional labor, you feed the very dynamic you want to escape. You stay stuck, not because you lack strength, but because you're applying that strength in a frequency mismatch. The narcissist doesn't operate in the realm of truth. And when you try to shift them using force, emotional, verbal, energetic, you are playing their game. You are speaking in the wrong language. You are lowering your frequency to match their dysfunction rather than raising your frequency to transcend it. Because healing doesn't happen at the level of the problem. It happens when you access a higher vibration, a state where truth becomes self-evident and resistance becomes irrelevant. That's what frequency is. It's not an intellectual stance. It's not a spiritual bypass. It's a physiological, emotional, energetic state that becomes the command center of your life. You begin to realize that your power lies not in convincing, but in calibrating. Not in controlling outcomes, but in aligning with coherence. When your frequency shifts, when you begin vibrating in clarity, peace, self-worth, and neutrality, you stop needing to prove anything. You stop engaging with distortion. You stop leaking energy into battles that were never meant to be won, only observed, understood, and exited. And frequency is not a mood. It's a discipline. It's a practice. It's the daily decision to rise into resonance, to tune your nervous system like an instrument, to choose how you feel rather than inheriting the chaos of others. You don't wait to feel empowered to take empowered action. You generate that frequency through breath, intention, embodiment. And that signal begins to shape your reality. You attract differently. You interpret differently. You respond differently. And most importantly, you feel differently because you're no longer operating from fear, from scarcity, from the trauma script that says, if I don't hold this together, everything will fall apart. You realize you were never meant to hold their chaos. You were meant to remember your own frequency and let that resonance become your boundary, your compass, your shield. And the more you stay in that frequency, the less you need force, because your energy speaks louder than your voice. Your coherence becomes your protection. Your presence becomes your power. You become immovable, not by tightening, but by tuning, not by armoring, but by amplifying the truth of who you are, not through words, but through signal. Let me know when you're ready for the final keynote. There is a sentence so simple, so unassuming on the surface that it might be overlooked by the untrained mind. But to the one who is awake, who has begun the slow, sacred work of reclaiming their inner authority, it becomes a lightning bolt that splits through illusion. It is not designed to attack. It is not spoken with rage. In fact, its power lies in its neutrality. It does not seek revenge. It doesn't play the game. It ends it. The sentence is, I see you. That's it. 3 words. But they are not casual words. They are not said from the actor self. They are spoken from the observer. From coherence. From a frequency so clear that it pierces through the veil of manipulation, projection, and performance like light through a fog. When you say, I see you, it's not just a sentence. It's an energetic strike. A collapse of the false identity the narcissist has constructed to survive, to dominate, to seduce and distort. Because their power relies entirely on one thing, not being seen. Not truly. Their survival depends on you believing the mask, believing the role, the superiority, the pity, the rage, the entitlement, the helplessness. It doesn't matter which mask they wear. What matters is that you don't question it, that you stay asleep, that you stay entangled in the illusion that this chaos is your fault, that this pain is love, that their wounds are your responsibility to heal. But I see you is not about blame. It's not even about confrontation. It is a declaration of awareness. It is the moment you stop asking why they're doing it and you simply acknowledge that they are. It's the moment you withdraw from the trance. When you stop analyzing the storyline and start feeling the pattern. It's the precise point when your nervous system, through regulation, repetition, coherence, stops responding with fear and starts holding presence. I see you says, I'm no longer hypnotized by your confusion. I see you says, I'm no longer seduced by your silence or baited by your chaos. I see you says, I know this isn't about me. I know this was never mine to carry. And they feel it, not because you're yelling, not because you're yelling, not because your frequency has changed. You're no longer in the role they cast you in. You're no longer available for manipulation. You're no longer operating from wounding. You're seeing, not just with the mind, but with the body, the heart, the gut, the field. The illusion begins to fracture. Because the narcissist doesn't fear confrontation. They thrive in it. They don't fear chaos. They create it. But what they do fear, viscerally, profoundly, is being seen. Seen through. Seen past. Seen beyond. Because to be seen in their entirety means there is no longer anywhere to hide, no persona left to weaponize, no narrative left to distort. And this is not about punishment, it's about sovereignty. It is about exiting the illusion without the need for explanation. It is about refusing to participate in a dance that only survives through unconsciousness. Because the moment you see, you no longer seek validation. You no longer try to get them to see you. You stop playing the mirror and start becoming the light. And in that light, their illusion becomes unsustainable. Let me know if you'd like the full speech draft with all the expanded sections flowing together. I'd be happy to weave them into one powerful final piece. So what happens when you stop responding to chaos with chaos? What happens when you no longer fight to be seen, but instead become the one who sees? You shift at the deepest level. Not through force, but through frequency. Not through resistance, but through resonance. You begin to rewire your brain, recondition your body, and recalibrate your field to a truth that doesn't need to scream to be heard. You realize that your power was never in changing them. It was in remembering you. Your clarity becomes your protection. Your coherence becomes your boundary. Your awareness becomes your freedom. Because when you look into the eyes of the narcissist and calmly say, "I see you. You are not starting a war. You are ending a spell. You are stepping out of the story. You are reclaiming the pen." And from that place, awake, aligned, and energetically sovereign. There is no mask strong enough, no illusion thick enough, no manipulation clever enough to pull you back into what you've now outgrown. You have become the frequency they cannot touch, the silence they cannot shake, the light they cannot follow. You are no longer acting, you are observing. And the observer aligned with truth does not need to fight for freedom. It simply is free.